Hey guys, welcome to the Learn Feng Shui podcast, where you'll learn Feng Shui from a classical point of view, taking out the myth and superstition. So if you're interested in learning Feng Shui, Chinese astrology, all things Chinese metaphysics, as well as the superstitions and myths that connect it all, you'll enjoy learning Feng Shui with me. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Learn Feng Shui podcast. Today we're going to be blending the magic of the holiday season with the balance of Feng Shui. I'm Candice Berlinga, certified Feng Shui practitioner and Red Ribbon professional with the International Feng Shui Guild. And today I'm going to be sharing tips from this month's newsletter on how to incorporate the 5 elements into your Christmas decor for a harmonious and festive home. And we're going to dive into the traditions of Winter Solstice, including a little reading of the Holly and Oak King and looking at some Yule and pagan traditions you might want to incorporate into your holiday celebration. It's a good way to embrace the season's energy and celebrate the turning of the year. Let's get into it. All right, from learnfengshui.com on this month's newsletter, Feng Shui Your Holiday. Let's add some intention into your holiday decor with the 5 elements. Page 1 of the newsletter here, looking first at the wood element. This does represent growth and vitality, bringing in the wood element's energy of growth, vitality, and new beginnings into your space can help inspire you. Just think about growing for the next the upcoming up season here. Remember, the season is water and it does feed the wood energy. So it's nice to kind of think of that renewal of spring. The greenery, such as real or faux Christmas tree, garlands, and wreaths. If you have a real Christmas tree, please choose a tall, healthy looking tree, and wood-based ornaments for an extra touch of the wood element are all nice touches. Earth element represents grounding and stability. I know this time of year can feel a little out of sorts, especially not everyone has the same support, right? But not everybody has the same experience. Instead of comforting, you might feel a little scattered. Well, adding some earth element can help. The earth element does encourage a sense of stability and calm, and it's ideal for balancing the holiday excitement, and it gives your decor a grounded and cozy feel. It does help you also balance those reds and greens of Christmas. One thing I like to do is I love the reds and greens, and I usually add a burlap garland to my tree. That's one of my tips here, adding burlap ribbon to your space or greenery, or using a tan tablecloth around your space to kind of ground it out and add some neutrals in can help with the busyness of the decor. I think in modern times, we've kind of gotten to that really aesthetic beige Christmas, which I'm not a fan of, but I do think adding some of those beiges and neutrals in can help balance it out and not help you feel so overwhelmed with the visual of the season, which I actually kind of like. Incorporating natural materials like ceramics, clay, or terracotta decorations is recommended also to bring extra earth energy. I know I talked about this when I did the 5 element Halloween decor, but pink is a really popular color. That pale pink color is kind of that earthy tone. The peachy tones can also represent that earth energy. Those are kind of alternatives if you like those colors instead of the browns, beiges, burlaps, natural touches like that. Additionally, you could add things like pine cones, which can pretty easily be incorporated into decor. So bringing in the warmth and passion of the fire element can create a lively, welcoming atmosphere. Red decorations, ornaments, garland, and ribbon, of course, can be incorporated. Easy to incorporate that red color. Even the twinkling lights and candles. And using your fireplace or fire pit outside, if you're in an area that's a little bit warmer, you might want to step outside and light that up there. But yeah, fireplace this time of year can be extra cozy. Poinsettias and other red florals are also recommended to add that passion and warmth. And reflecting the season here, a water element. And it does represent flow and just kind of that introspection, that reflection inside. Water does encourage flow and connection, which can help create a peaceful, introspective energy during this holiday season. You can incorporate flowing elements like garland and reflective items, glass ornaments, all represent the water element. Mirrors, snowflakes, and even icicles are a lovely way to incorporate it. And thinking outside the box with color, you could just do like blue or black, and even deep purple accents are a nice non-traditional touch to the holiday decor, especially if you don't really love the traditional reds and greens of the season. Some people just like different colors. Adding the metal element. So you can bring in clarity, precision, and honor your inner child by bringing in metal elements to your holiday space. And it does help promote precision, focus, and clarity. You can add silver and metallic decorations, which is pretty easy to incorporate, metal ornaments, tinsel, and bells. Iridescence and rainbow colors are a really fun way to add a little bit of whimsy. And you can also add yours or your own children's handmade ornaments. If you happen to have any you inherited from your family that you made, maybe your family's no longer with you, but you have something you made when you were a kid. Remember that metal element in the West sector is associated with children from some perspectives. And so to honor that, you can definitely put up some of those handmade ornaments. You can add whites and grays. Of course, those silvers, which we just talked about, it does mimic the coldness of the season and adds a clean, elegant touch, kind of bringing like a polished look to your setup. So those are my recommendations here from the newsletter. One last thing you can do if you don't like traditional decor, and I've talked about this before, is considering adding the three friends of winter to your decor, which is bamboo, plum blossom, and evergreen. They invite and represent strength, perseverance, and longevity to your space. It's because these plants thrive through the winter's cold. They symbolize resilience and a steadfast spirit, even in challenging times, which I think is very relevant to the times we live in right now. Consider adding a little sprout of this. The evergreen is really easy to incorporate. It's everywhere this year. Not so sure about the plum blossom, and bamboo should be coming out at stores near you in preparation for the Chinese New Year, although you might not get those in time for Christmas. Lovely touches to add and serve as an intentional reminder of strength and perseverance to your space. While many of us celebrate the holidays with traditional decor, not everyone connects with the season in a strictly religious way. For those of you looking to embrace a more nature focused or spiritual approach, incorporating Yule traditions can add a meaningful and timeless element to your celebration. Let's kind of explore some ways to celebrate from learnreligions.com your rituals. So, Yule is the winter solstice. It's a time of great symbolism and power. It marks the return of the sun when the days finally begin to get a little longer. It's also a time to celebrate with family and friends and to share the spirit of giving during the holidays. Here's some great Yule rituals that you can do to celebrate the winter Sabbath, either as part of a group or as a solitary. The winter solstice is a time of reflection during the darkest and longest night of the year. Why not take a moment to offer up a prayer on Yule? Try a different devotional prayer for the 12 days of Christmas to give you food for thought during the holiday season, or simply incorporate the ones that resonate with you into your seasonal rituals. One I really like, the first one here, is setting up a Yule altar. This really does mimic the traditions of the ancestor worship that the Eastern traditions do during this time. You can incorporate all of the elements of Feng Shui into this. You can do this by setting up candles, set up an offering of some sort of wine, salt, incense, and of course, evergreen. You can add some foods to it. There's not really a specific way to do it. So you may try by setting up a small altar to honor your relatives or to just hold space for those who need love, maybe set some intention into it. But do what calls to you. You can definitely add pine cones, evergreen wreaths, stuff like that. If you look up pagan altars, they have pretty good examples. You can do a ritual to welcome back the sun. The ancients knew that the winter solstice was the longest night of the year, which meant that the sun was beginning its long journey back towards Earth, and it was a time of celebration for rejoicing in the knowledge that soon the warm days of spring would return and the dormant Earth would come back to life. On this day, the sun stands still in the sky, and everyone on Earth knows the change is coming. You can perform this ritual to celebrate return of the sun. It says a Yule cleansing ritual. About a month before Yule rolls in, we're minus that time right now, but you can start thinking about the clutter you've accumulated over the past year and do a spring cleaning. It says here, which is a great point, you're not obligated to keep things that you don't like, don't need, or don't use. And the less physical clutter you have laying around, the easier it is to function on an emotional and spiritual level. And we know that from a practical standpoint, visual clutter can increase stress and anxiety. Just doing this ritual of clearing out your physical space before Yule arrives. You don't have to do it all at once. Maybe you clear a few things out. I've actually been doing this. I need to go hit my garage up. Hadn't done that yet. So it says here, if you're one of those people who feels bad about getting rid of stuff, you can donate it to a charity. Many organizations do coat and clothing drives this time of year, so look for one in your area. And if you haven't worn it or listened to it, played with it, or even eaten it in the past year, then get rid of it. Decorating can be a nice ritual. You'll definitely want things organized before you start decorating for Yule or Christmas. I know that I've decorated for Thanksgiving, so I've taken all my stuff down and I've dusted and I'm cleaning and organizing all that stuff so I can get my home organized to decorate. If you're not organized yet, now's your chance to get there. Each family member should be responsible for their own belongings. Another thing it mentions here is cleaning your windows. It says you'll be amazed at what good window washing can do for your house, to say nothing of the way you feel. So it just kind of gives a little cleaning advice here. You can clean those windows, clean your mini blinds, dust and wipe them off. It might be too cold outside, but cleaning the inside of them and wiping down the blinds and stuff can definitely make your space feel better. And from a feng shui perspective, like BTB style of feng shui, I do believe that that represents the way you see the world and your eyes. And so when your windows are clear and clean, that's one thing they recommend to do to get a new perspective on things. So I recommend that too. And using a broom to sweep can be part of the ritual. We've covered this on episodes 2 when I talk about sweeping in and out. Of course, it's a symbolic way of sweeping negative energy out of your home. Another thing it notes is cleaning your air filter. So if you have an air filter in your home, HVAC filter, clean that out, change that out. Cleaning baseboards and other woodwork. So getting those floors cleaned and again, getting rid of the old, getting ready for the new to come in. And saging. Saging is a good way to do that. And you can use those dates on the website that I have up for lucky dates. I do have some like home cleaning and clearing dates. So go check that out and you can use those dates for an extra boost of good luck, but you're not limited to using those. You can do that anytime. You can also smudge or do a spiritual cleansing on the days that are noted. It does give a little bit of a smudging advice here. It says to do a smudging, start at your front door with your incense or smudge stick in a bowl or something that can catch the debris. You move the incense around each door and window and you go through each room following along the lines of the wall. If you have multiple levels, continue up and down the stairs as needed. And some people like to add a small incantation to the process or a small prayer. You can say any prayer you'd like. But here it gives one that says, Yule is here and I smudge this place fresh and clean in time and space. Sage and sweetgrass burning free. As the sun returns, so shall it be. I think that's lovely. And again, you can say your own prayer. I will link to this in the show notes. So if you want to repeat that mantra or that prayer there and incorporate that intention into your space, that'll be linked in the show notes. Another way to celebrate is holding a family Yule log ceremony. I know there's different ways you can make a Yule log. You can look that up here. It just says a holiday celebration that began in Norway on the night of the winter solstice. It was common to hoist a giant log into the hearth and celebrate the return of the sun each year. If your family enjoys rituals, you can welcome the sun back at Yule with a simple winter ceremony. The first thing you'll need is a Yule log that you'll make a week or two in advance, and you can enjoy this as a centerpiece prior to burning it in a ceremony. You'll also need a fire. You can do this with a ritual outside, and this also ties in nicely to adding the fire element into your space so you can burn that Yule log in the fireplace or in the fire pit outside. So perfect. You can do a holiday tree ritual. It says here that if your family uses a holiday tree during the Yule season, or you'll more than likely have a Christmas tree, you might want to consider blessing the tree. It just says you can do this when you put it up and when you take it down. It suggests the real tree. It says it's more environmentally friendly. I thought the fake trees were more environmentally friendly because you keep those for years. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because they can pollute it when you finally get rid of them, I suppose. I've never thrown one away. I've always donated it. I don't know. It does talk about doing something called a goddess ritual, and it talks about for solitary and for groups. And it's basically the same thing we talked about. It's celebrating the return of the sun. It says here that it's a time that you bid the crone farewell and invite the maiden back into your home, just symbolizing the end of the year and the beginning of renewal. That can also be personified as like, how they do father time and they welcome in the baby for the new year. It's the same type of thing. It also says here that you can also interpret that as the holly and the oak king, which I'm going to read here in just a minute. And it kind of walks you through what you can do. And it does have a little bit of a ritual you can do there, or you can make up your own. It doesn't really matter. The thing that matters is that you are acknowledging the returning of the sun and the awakening of that yang energy again. One last thing it mentions is it says you can do blessing rituals for donations. And it says here in many modern pagan communities, an emphasis is placed on the idea of helping those in need. And it's not uncommon to attend a pagan event in which guests are invited to donate clothes, canned goods, toiletries, or even books and pet care products. Donations are presented to local aid groups, food pantries, libraries, shelters, etc. So if you're gathering up some sort of donation, then before you drop them off, you can do a little bit of a blessing over the item. And you can do this any way you want. Any deity that you recognize, you can pray over. Remember, Feng Shui does not have a religion. I myself do kind of do a little bit more towards the pagan influences because it corresponds so closely with the Chinese solar calendar and whatnot. And really, it's just a recognition of the seasons and the cross quarter points. So, not actually too very religious. I am slightly involved with my local pagan group, and when they've done rituals, they have asked for donations. This time of year, we need to help out whenever we can. All right, let's take a look at the tale of the holly and the oak king. Many Yule traditions are deeply rooted in honoring the cycles of nature and the balancing of light and dark. So this ties beautifully into the story of the holly and the oak king. The tale symbolizes the eternal dance between the waning and waxing of the year, making it a perfect reflection of the winter solstice. So let's take a moment to explore this myth and the wisdom that it offers in this seasonal shift. From Tales from the Enchanted Forest, which of course I'll link to in the show notes. In the beginning, before men or seasons, two brothers were born. One brother was radiant, and everywhere he went bloomed with life. He wore the crown of oak, a tree known for its strength, beauty, and noble presence. His brother was equally as cheery and knew that every light needed dark, so with him came the darkness and slumber. Trees would lose their leaves in preparation for cold spells, and animals would hide away in the warmth of their burrows and dens. He took for his crown the evergreen holly. Both brothers ruled in harmony, although they did quarrel from time to time about the need for more light or more darkness. No one knows what caused their rift. Some say it was the beautiful goddess that loved them both. Others say it was the creation and rise of humans that drove the brothers to quarrel. Whatever the reason, each day the brothers overstepped, testing the bounds of their range. Men loved the bright, sunny days and longed to stay in the court of the Oak King. They lent their support to the Oak King, and he grew more powerful. He was their fertility god, their green man of the woods. The Holly King, unsupported and alone, fled for the lands for some time, and the world thrived in an unbroken summer. Over time, the people grew weary without death and darkness. The plants whose blooms had once been celebrated were now commonplace, and the eternal cycle of life and death was broken, and the Oak King was weak without rest. The Holly King watched from afar until one fateful day he returned. The two brothers fought a deadly battle for the crown. Tired and spent from keeping the world green, the Oak King fell, and he passed his crown into the Holly King, who made quick work of bringing steady death and decay to the lands as he blanketed the world in snow. The days grew shorter, so the people and animals were finally able to rest. All the trees lost their leaves and were barren, except for the pine and holly, which reigned supreme. Some say the Holly King did not actually kill his brother, but put him to rest, and the battle was a plot between them to ensure the changing of the seasons without meddling from humans. Others say he had grown cold in exile and slew his brother where he stood. Either way, during the winter solstice or Yule, when the Holly King was at the height of his power, he was surprised to see his brother alive and well. The Oak King had risen, and after a raging battle, he emerged victorious. The Holly King was defeated, and the Oak King went back to work, bringing spring and life back to the world. Each year, when the other was at its strongest, the Oak or the Holly King would emerge to battle for the crown. You might be asking yourself, why would they choose the night when the other is at its best to battle? Surely the Oak King would be defeated at Yule when he was at the weakest, and the Holly King during midsummer. Some legends actually shift to change the time of the battles, but Sir James George Fraser had a best example that I could find in this, the little golden bough. He writes that despite being at the height of its power, their death indicates the beginning of their failing strength and that it's time for a new king. So the wheel of the year is half dark and half light. For the half of the year, Oak King brings fertility and life to the world before losing the battle to the Holly King. So that's the tale. And looking at a brief history of Father Christmas, it does say here that the Holly King is described as one of the earliest versions of Father Christmas or Santa Claus. This seems kind of crazy to me because Santa is supposed to be a big jolly guy who wears red and lives at the North Pole, drinks Coca-Cola, and has an army of elves to build toys for the good little children, but not a self-proclaimed king that wears a crown of leaves. Of course, commercialization might have colored me a little bit, but I think it's a better way to approach this disconnect is that Santa Claus is just the newest version of Father Christmas. Because starting around the 15th and 16th century, people began personifying Christmas as King Christmas or Prince Christmas. And at this point, the figure was mainly for adults and he encouraged drinking, merriment, and feasting. Later in the 17th century, the term Father Christmas emerged to convince people to enjoy it in moderation. However, there was a decline in his popularity come the 18th century, so I guess people didn't love the modern idea. Reboots were all the rage at the moment, and sure enough, in the 19th century, Father Christmas became the embodiment of good cheer, and soon after, Santa Claus entered the scene. And Clement Clark Moore's poem, A Visit from St. Nick, helped cement the modern idea of jolly old St. Nick. Now, looking at the Oak King, he is regarded as the green fertility god. The Oak King symbolizes rebirth, fertility, and life, and he is not the only one. There's many stories of male fertility symbols, including the Green Man and the Wild Man of the Woods. Specifically, the Green Man has close ties with the Oak King, and they are commonly depicted as a man's face peering out of a dense foliage. In the Mike Harding book, The Little Green Man, this does look at Green Man sculptures and art from all over the world, including places like Iraq and Lebanon from as early as the 2nd century. It's hard to say what this foliage head's purpose was aside from decorative, but its recurring nature hints at something greater than just an art piece. Modern connections between the Oak King and the Green Man and the Man of the Woods include Peter Pan, Robin Hood, and the Lord of the Rings treants. I think that the story of the Holly Oak King beautifully mirrors the balance of yin and yang in nature, so I want to include it. Just as the yin represents the darkness and rest, the yang symbolizes light and growth. And the winter solstice marks a turning point where the long nights give way to the growing daylight, and this tale just captures the shift of the Oak King's rise, representing the return of the light and the promise of renewal. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this winter solstice episode. I was decorating with the 5 elements. Just want to take a little bit more of a mellow episode. And I'll be back next week for Spooky Geography, the long-awaited episode, at least for me. Don't know who else has been waiting for that one. I always say I just do this podcast for myself. Hopefully you guys like it. All right. Well, I'll catch you guys then. Have a fun time decorating and enjoying these upcoming weeks till Christmas.